we have these famous words which are, alas, often abused. Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. But we have this other remark which completes it, for the Son of Man is master of the Sabbath. The word Shabbat is the root to rest, and the profound need that man has for rest is inscribed in creation itself. Different points, there have been attempts to ignore this. For instance, in the French Revolution, when they started giving other names to months and years, and having a 10-day week deliberately to exclude God from the equation, it was a disaster. God knows our rhythm. There is an order in creation. Strangely enough, even in the human body, the female body, there is something corresponding to the order of the moon, as though there were harmony in creation. There is something which we need to safeguard, order and a certain rhythm. If time gets out of hand, we too get out of hand, and we end up willy-nilly at the end of the time given to us without having ordered its running. And many people, not just elderly people, are having that experience in our day. They are waking up and for the first time ever reflecting only on the other side of time. Where did it go? So these moments when we are somewhat apart are moments which we need to evaluate, because grace is given and light quite intensely if we come apart for a while just for that purpose, to reflect on time and its use, because they are privileged moments in which we make space for the silent one to have a voice. Our day, if we're not careful, lacks that. So, for that to happen, we need to bear in mind, first of all, that the initial retreat the Lord has given us is the Shabbat. We have already that pedagogy given to Israel, that the day of rest was the end of the Lord's work. And as soon as the explosion of the resurrection came into our time, the instinct came to sanctify that day, inscribed in the languages of Europe in the expression Domenica, Dimanche, and so on, the day of the Lord. In these parts, and also in Germany, we still have the old Celtic name, the day of the sun, but who is more the Son than Christ himself? We have, therefore, this shift gradually towards the sanctifying of this day, and by extension, the instincts of rest, once collocated on the 7th day, come now into the first day of the week. And of course, it was after the Constantinian peace that this became political. The expression that we have, servile work, comes from them. Slaves, the servi, were no longer to be obliged to work for their masters in the same way on that day. And that was the beginning of the Christian pattern of time in Europe, Constantine being the first Christian emperor. If then we enter into the rest of the Lord, the repose of which the psalm speaks, the psalm that quite often we sing at the beginning of the day, or that today you would listen to his voice and so on, it goes on about entering into his rest. If we take that seriously already on a weekly basis, we have inbuilt in our life a limit to the damage of our existence. And we do not realize that if we do not safeguard the quality of our Sunday, we are automatically sacrificing the quality of our life. If we are so busy that Sunday is no different from any other day, then say what we like, we too have missed the point. And we can end up in a situation similar to what we have in the first reading, when Hezekiah is realizing that his innings is up. Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and addressed this prayer to the Lord. And so he goes on, and we have then eventually the Lord having mercy upon him. And we have as a result this canticle which we sang afterwards, which comes directly after that first reading in Isaiah itself. You have held back my life, O Lord, from the pit of doom. And this experience is something which people have sometimes when they are in accidents. They see their whole life before them and they realize this is the end, but also the beginning. And at that point there is no illusion, for genuinely speaking, they tend, at least at that point, to face reality perhaps for the first time. It's something that we can anticipate in a moment of retreat. If we are honest, we can at that point ask ourselves, should I die now by whatever means, for instance an accident? Would I actually have done what I wanted to do on this planet? The Lord, and we think about it now at 3 o'clock this hour of mercy on a Friday afternoon, died in possession, in control of all. He died with the dignity of a king of his creation, a king of the cosmos that he was redeeming, when he said, Tetelestai, it is accomplished, it is consummated. He had accomplished the work for which he had been sent. And the question is, when it is time for us to go, will we or will we not be able in our own mode to say the same? If right now that is not the case, we can ask ourselves, why not? And what must we do to make it be? Because time is actually all the time running out, rather like those egg timers that we see, the sand coming through. At the end of the day, the Church itself proposes to us a little remedy. It is inscribed in the rhythm of the Divine Office, but which lay people also often do, the office of compline, which means the office of the completed things, completorium, when the Church invites us to have a quiet moment and a pause. That is actually quite important. It is the moment to look back and to see, is there a going up or a going down? Is there a use of time according to the plan, or just a frittering away of the unique gift of time? And normally, if one is taking one's life seriously, the sum of these examinations of conscience at compline become then the basis of one's confession, which by instinct would be regular, because we do acquire grime in the course of a week. So, to conclude, the spiritual life is not a question, as the Lord is trying to point out to these Pharisees, of just following certain external patterns, but entering into the raison d'être of the law. So too, in the spiritual life, an element of simplification of things enters in. There is a book by an author, Poulain. I believe he's a Carthusian, but it was written anonymously. La vie spirituelle, or la vie intérieure simplifiée. The interior life simplified. And it is something which essentially goes to this, that we can be missing the point if we are dwelling on certain external practices and insistence on certain points, when in fact the optic, which is what these are protecting, is missed, e.g. intimacy, and that relaxation in the presence which comes from, as it were, being in automatic pilot, when things just happen on the exterior, but then one can enter into the contact, which is the whole object of the divine life in us, given us by grace. In that object, I would like just to, in a few seconds, quote these lines that we have through two mystic souls who lived not that long ago, with Sister Mary of the Trinity and Sister Consolata Bertoni. They lived in the last century. First died in 1942 and the other in 46. But they were great mystic souls, and we have a few insights that we can take with us today from them, remembering this element of not concentrating on the periphery, but asking ourselves, are we really getting to the point while we are here on earth? This comes then from the Lord to this mystic, Sister Mary of the Trinity. You cannot live without being loved and without loving. And it is not God or some of your fellow creatures that you love yourself. Love is as the breath of your soul. Love must be spoken of with respect because it comes from God. It must be received as a messenger from God, as His Spirit. It is an impulse which you receive, but which does not come from you, and which is divine in its source. Now that teaching is actually extremely profound, because it is collocating the whole adventure of love in God, the fountain thereof, and it is inviting us to make of that the motive force of our existence. That all the rest, if it is not inspired by that, is on the level of the periphery and the cosmetic. And it also teaches us the essence of community life, because often vocations flounder, even when they are divinely given, because when they are not well received, that is, when there is a form of cruelty or even bullying going on in a community, the person can be damaged spiritually, and a vocation which is not able to love can be lost. Therefore, every community has to ask itself, is the external or the internal the center of attention? And how is the quality of that internal? Because that is what actually draws people. And young people are not blind to the essence if it is missing. Remember that, like yourself, your sisters need to feel themselves loved. It is a necessity, because you are creatures in a state of evolution, and you need the love of others in order to develop. Now, this coming from the Lord in the 1940s in a cloister is very interesting. Perfecte Caritatis, of course, would develop it, but it is the essence of any religious life. If it is not there, we are a counter-witness, and not a lighthouse, but a black house. Love them, that is your sisters, because they need it to become better, as you yourself need to be loved to become better. A person who feels herself loved becomes capable of every form of generosity. I remember at the age of 17, after I'd been sent to Ampleforth for Holy Week, I was actually starting to feel tears coming to my eyes as I waved goodbye to the gentle brethren who had seen me off from the cloister into the minibus. They were people who were expressing the love of the Lord. And I remember saying to myself, there is goodness here. That is better than any vocation, drive or program. The soul that honours me is not the one who has suffered most. It is the one who has most perfectly transformed all her sufferings into love and joy. Yes, all her sufferings, even the smallest annoyances and little disappointments. Her love glorifies me already on earth. And that then too becomes the outworking, this element of joy. If there is no joy, then one questions what is going on. To This other mystic, Consolata, Sister Consolata Petrone, we have this teaching: today, as yesterday and tomorrow, I ask only and always for love from my poor creatures. And then this one: do you know what I desire from you? Continuous intimacy without even an instant's distraction. Always united with me, even when you must converse with creatures. This then is the object that we have to set before our eyes, however we are working our existence out here on earth. The object is always this element of union, intimacy, in which therefore we avoid what damages the rest of the soul, because people who are intimately united repose in each other's presence. It is true in the human encounter, it is true equally in the divine. And if we are restless beings, we cannot experience the joy of gentle intimacy. Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi